Hey, everybody. Happy 2026. Welcome to the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark. We're going to talk about what I thought was an abysmal game yesterday. And it pains me to say that, Mark, because I was one of those guys at one time that was scratching for playing time. And it just wasn't a very good football game. But Eagles rested all their starters. Obviously, we got beat by Washington. We're the number 3 seed. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a really sketchy performance by Tanner McKee, who I had high hopes for coming into the year. Loved him at practice, loved what I saw. Yesterday he had an abysmal second half, and I don't know how that's going to what that's going to bear for his Eagles' future. But you checked out the game yesterday. You and I were texting a little bit. I think you were as unimpressed as I was, right?
With Tanner McKee, yeah, all I had heard. I'll be honest. I didn't watch a lot of. I mean, people loved him in preseason. I didn't watch a lot of Eagles preseason games because I didn't get the Eagles preseason games down here in South Carolina.
You're not on in Charlotte, the Eagles preseason.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of the Eagles pre. Anyway, but I had heard good things, and I'm like, all right. But now again, let's judge him on the fact that he did play without A.J. Brown.
Absolutely, the offensive line did not do him any favors.
The same line, so it's hard to weigh. Yeah, no, he played poorly. Let's get that out of the way. But he may have been a little better if he had the regular guys in there with him. Which I was in favor of the rest factor. I'll say that right up front. I did not mind.
Me too.
But, and I know Sirianni was asked this after the game. See, I didn't think the Lions had a chance of beating the Bears in Chicago in a game that the Bears needed and the Lions didn't.
I mean, rivalry game.
Yeah, true. I thought it'd be close, but I just thought
the line was small, which made me think that the Lions had a chance.
Well, they did. Obviously, they did. And Campbell, he's going to try to win. But I just thought the players would be like, we're eliminated. We had a disappointing season, and here the Bears are. They're this year's little Cinderella story in a sense, right? Worst to first and all that. Anyway, so I didn't think the Eagles were going to get the 2 seed because I thought the Bears would win. But when you look up at the scoreboard and you see 16-0 Detroit, I thought that you might want to put some guys back in. And Sirianni was asked that, and he said, "Nah, when the guy's sitting there around all day, you don't put him in." Now you played. Is that a factor? I mean, there's guys like, I'm sure there were games like you said, you were a backup, right? So if you're sitting on the sideline the whole game, and who was the tight end ahead of you at the time? Spagnuolo
and Kreftley, yeah.
Okay, so Spagnuolo twists his ankle and has to come out, and Vermeil says, "Done, get in the game." Are you going to say, "Oh no, coach, it's cold"? I'm like, "No, you're going to run out there and play."
Yeah, I would have told Vermeil that, and then I would have gotten my plane ticket home the next day. So I didn't have a whole lot of options.
What's the difference between a backup going in cold for when a guy gets hurt versus A.J. Brown or Devontae? I guess A.J. wasn't dressed, but Devontae could have gone back in the game. On that last, I'm saying that last drive, you got a chance to tie or win with a 2-point conversion. I might have wanted some of my guys.
He made a decision; it wasn't going to happen, and he stuck to it. Yeah. And I admire that. And I'd much rather have the number 3 seed with a healthy team than the number 2 seed with a couple guys nicked up.
And that's why I was all for the rest at the beginning. But
so let me thank a few sponsors. Hey, we got a great guest today. We've got Mike Sielski of the Inquirer. He's going to join us. We're going to talk about not only yesterday's game, but what's going to go on here in the playoffs. We've got San Francisco, which I thought was a favorable matchup. I'm not crazy about the mild weather. I would have rather seen the windy and cold, but we'll talk about that in a second. Let me thank our sponsors. First of all, we do this recording at Sweet Recording Studios, normally in Mount Laurel. We're doing it remotely today until the new studios are back up, but Joe Gangemi can help you with your podcast. If you want to start one, contact Joe at sweetrecording.com. Chris Wilhelm of Citywide Mortgage can handle all of your home mortgage needs. Chris can be contacted at 609-234-4304. That's Chris Wilhelm at Citywide Mortgage. Tony DiGirolamo, Tony D, can handle all of your insurance and investment needs. Tony's a great guy, and he will do a good job taking a look at everything that you do from that standpoint. Tony can be reached at 609-541-7515. Tony DiGirolamo at DiGirolamo Financial. And Kelly at Adjust Your Sleep Mattress Boutique in Marlton. They have a great showroom. They've got a mattress that can fit anybody's needs. Kelly's phone number is 856-357-3640. and tell them Jersey Man and Philly Man magazine sent you. She's a great client of my magazine. And then finally, speaking of Jersey Man, Mark, the new issue will be up on the website today. And I know you did a great article on the 20 under 26 and some great stuff on there. We've got a little story on Howie Roseman that Dave Spadero wrote for us, and Jillian Mealy, of course, who's a local broadcaster, started her own women's clothing line. So that will be available a little bit later today on jerseymanmagazine.com. So let's bring in our guest, Mike Sielski, who, of course, covers the Eagles for the Philadelphia Inquirer. And Mike is an accomplished author. He went to LaSalle and then Columbia. Mike, I would tell you that I could have gone to Columbia had I been able to spell it. That kind of preempted me from signing the scholarship paper. Of course, they don't give scholarships there. But Mike, welcome to the Bird Brains. How are you?
Doing great, guys. It's good to see both of you. And Ken, I was only there a year. So they kind of spat me out like I was sausage in a press. So don't feel too envious. I
had a short stint there too. I actually did an ESPN college football game up there and interviewed Robert Kraft at halftime. And I told Robert Kraft, I was Gronk before there was a Gronk, and he said, "Well, how come I never heard of you?" So that kind of busted my bubble. So anyway,
Columbia.
So let's talk about
Columbia. I go to Columbia all the time.
Not that one.
South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Yeah, I know. I got you. But I'm bummed. Hey, so let's talk a little bit about yesterday, Mike. I know, I think I read your column that said you were in favor of what happened yesterday. Can you go into that a little bit about resting the starters?
Yeah, look, I just think, guys, as you said at the start of the show, that there was more benefit to them being rested heading into the playoffs, and more importantly, minimizing risk that they would lose any of their most important players than there was in getting the second seed. And being in that locker room after the game yesterday, that kind of reaffirmed my initial thought. I spent a long time talking to Moro Ajomo, who's a really good player, really smart kid. And he basically said, look back at the last few years. People don't think about this, but games pile up. When you make a deep playoff run like we did last year, you're playing an additional basically 25% of your season. You're playing 4 more games. And look at what happened to the 49ers after they got to the Super Bowl in 2023. They fell off the following year. Look at the Eagles after losing the Super Bowl to the Chiefs. They slump at the end of the season. Now, all of that is not necessarily fatigue physically, but there is a mental fatigue aspect to this. And, the analogy I'd use, guys, is watch that game yesterday and watch Grant Calcaterra leave the game after a hip drop tackle, and watch Brett Toth leave the game with a concussion. If you're playing your starters, that's Dallas Goedert and that's Landon Dickerson, potentially. So I understand the desire among fans to want to get the number 2 seed. It shapes up on paper anyway that they'd have an easier road. You get the Packers, who are kind of beat up, and then you don't necessarily have to see the Rams in the second round. But this field is so wide open that I don't think you can go into that thinking the chalk is going to hold. So you go in as healthy as you possibly can.
Hey, Mark, I was a little surprised by 2 things. Number one, they had Jordan Davis starting, and I think he played a fair amount of snaps. And also, I was surprised at Devontae Smith. They were trying to get him 1,000 yards, but could you imagine if something had happened to Devontae Smith in a freakish thing? I mean, poor Sirianni would have taken the brunt of that. But what were your thoughts about those 2 guys playing? And Ajomo played it quite a bit too. I guess you
have to play somebody. Ken. They don't. The roster isn't that deep. It's not like preseason where you have 90 guys on the team, so you could sit everybody. You only dress 48, right? So, and 3, one's a kicker, one's a punter, one's a long snapper. So you're down to 45. You got to play somebody. You can't, But I'm with you on the Devontae Smith. That kind of listen. I thought it was great they let him get his 1,000 yards. But didn't they have a chance to let Saquon Barkley break an NFL record last year, and they didn't play him because they wanted him to rest?
Well, here's the difference there, though, Eck. If you play Saquon to try to get him the 101 yards it would have taken to get the NFL record, and I would have liked to have seen that. I actually wrote that at the time. You got to play the entire starting offensive line.
Right. That's a good point.
And Devontae only needed, I think, 40 yards, 44 yards.
He got it on that one play, I think, didn't he?
I think it was 26. I think
it wasn't much. Yeah, it wasn't much.
Yeah. And he made a couple of catches on that first drive. You know, you're right. Tanner McKee did not play well yesterday, but he sure looked pretty good throwing the ball to Devontae.
So that gets you back to what I said when we started. So you're down now. Nick Sirianni admitted during the week that he was going to look up at the scoreboard every once again and see what the Lions-Bears score was. So you're looking up and you're seeing the Lions led most of the game. Bears come back tight. Could you put Devontae back in that last drive and win the game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you're not going to put in the guys who are inactive, and you're not going to, we're not going to put in a ton of guys who.
But just Devontae, that's all I want.
Yeah, maybe just Devontae. I mean, I could see that too, but again, Devontae's been sitting now most of the game.
True.
I don't know.
I understand why he didn't. I mean,
I get it. I get it. I think we're making. I think we are all kind of look. It's a thing to talk about, and this has been a weird Eagles season all around. But I do think the idea that they go into the playoffs healthy and the 3 seed is better than, as Ken said, the number 2 seed and beat up a little bit more.
And they're getting San Francisco, who you mentioned the Packers are banged up, which they are, but so is San Francisco.
Yeah,
they're not coming in full health either. They're a little nicked up. So
let's talk about that matchup a little bit. We're going to play them Sunday at 4:30, and here's the way I see this game. Number one, this was my preferred matchup because San Francisco traveling across the country into a hostile, it's going to be a mild environment. I was hoping it was going to be cold, like I said in the open, but I see it as this way. You've got good on good. You've got a good Eagles defense versus a good San Francisco offense. You've also got an inconsistent Eagles offense against a beat-up San Francisco defense. I think that bodes well for the Eagles. Mike, what do you think about the matchup?
I agree with you, Ken. This to me, I know they won 6 games in a row before spitting out the bid against the Seahawks the other night. But this to me is not the same 49ers team that rolled into the link a couple of years ago and just beat the snot out of the Eagles. I mean, that game, if you remember it was something like 45-17 or whatever it was. That was like watching Clubber Lang tattoo Rocky Balboa in the beginning of Rocky 3.
That was the Big Dom game, right?
Yeah, that was the Big Dom game. And that was just, this team is going to freight train you with George Kittle and Deebo Samuel, and Brock Purdy's going to play point guard, and Kyle Shanahan's going to, dial up these exotic schemes and passes and misdirections and then just smash in the mouth with the running game. I don't see that from this 49ers team right now. And I will say this. I think there's a decent chance that the Eagles get back to the Super Bowl because I think that their defense is the best single unit in the NFC. Mm-hmm. And I think no matter how inconsistent their offense is, that defense gives them a chance to beat anybody.
Mark, that's the old adage. If you can play defense and you can run the football and stop the run, you got a chance to win every football game. And I agree with Mike. It would not surprise me at all to see the Eagles get back to the Super Bowl. I'd like to see them tighten things up offensively a little bit. But from a defensive standpoint, if we get our offensive line healthy and Saquon can run the ball, don't be surprised if the Eagles make a run.
Well, I think they're going to get to the NFC title game at Seattle. And then then it's a toss-up because Seattle. Everything that you just said about the Eagles, if we were the bird brains talking about a different kind of bird, mm-hmm. we'd be saying the same things about Seattle. They play great defense, they run the ball well, they're well coached. I mean, it's similar. I think that's your NFC title. Again, the Rams could get in the way somewhere somehow, mm-hmm. But I think the Eagles and Seattle are the 2 best teams.
Yeah, and I'll say this too, guys. I think if the Eagles get there, no matter, I mean, look, it's going to be, it's kind of wide open, right, in the NFC. There is not a single team or teams like there were last year with the Lions and Eagles who are clearly a cut above everybody else, or so we thought. But it'll be excruciating for the Eagles to kind of march there because I think what you saw 2 weeks ago against the Bills is a template for the way they want to play. And I know how that cuts against what Jeffrey Lurie and to a lesser degree Howie Roseman have wanted going back to when Eckel and I were there, when Andy Reid was the head coach in the early 2000s. It was, hey, you took a 13-0 lead against a really competitive team like the Bills. You were looking to add to that lead, make it 20-0, make it 27-0, because any team in the NFL could come back at any time and score points. The Eagles, I think the league has changed a little bit, and I think the Eagles don't look at it that way. They're saying to themselves, if we get a 13-0 lead, the way we lose that game is if Jalen Hurts turns the ball over. or we turn the ball over. So we're going to do everything we can to minimize that. And yeah, it's walking a high wire because you're not going to put up 25, 35 points unless you're put in a position where you have to try to put up 25 or 35 points. But if you're not, if your defense is shutting down Josh Allen or shutting down Matthew Stafford, they're going to walk the high wire and try to win a close game.
And that's what they've done right this year.
Yeah.
Mostly, let me ask both of you guys this. So let's say we all think they're going to beat San Francisco, I think, right?
Yes.
Good. I think it's going to be a good game. Here's a little stat for you, though, that scares me a little bit if you're an Eagles person. Kyle Shanahan is 6-0 in wild card games. He's never lost in the first round. That's interesting. But anyway.
Yeah, I'd have to look to see who they're playing in that first round game. But yeah, that's impressive. And he's one of the few guys left, Eck, it seems to me, in the league now who can scheme anything, right? Like you don't look at the Eagles offense. You didn't look at it last year, really, as dominant as it could be in the running game and say to yourself, oh my God, they're just fooling people all over the place. But you certainly say that with the Kyle Shanahan offense.
Absolutely. But let me, if they do win, and this game would have already been played, but would you rather go on the road to Chicago or would you rather host the Rams?
That, to me, that's a toss-up. It's a toss-up. I mean, I've said all year that I think the Rams are the best team in the NFC, and I still think that. I think Seattle's number 2. And I would put the Bears at number 3 and the Eagles at number 4 if I had to rank the teams right now. But I don't relish either one of those matchups. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I would prefer to play the Bears in Chicago, but only slightly. Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay and that offense would scare me a little bit. The Bears would have built up some momentum, presumably by beating the Packers in the first round. But, that would be a quote-unquote revenge game for the Eagles, right? They played so terribly against the Bears the first time around. Push comes to shove. You're going to trust Caleb Williams to not make a big mistake against that defense?
That's something the Rams. Although this is where I'd check the weather report. If it's going to be cold and like that's, last year the Eagles caught a big break playing the Rams in the snow. The guys from LA did not want to come in and see snow on the ground, right? So
that's true. And they still almost lost. They were one Jalen Carter great play away from losing that game.
Hey, listen, I want to go back to the game yesterday just for a brief minute. Then we're going to break down the playoffs. But, Mike, does it concern you that these backup players for the Eagles, especially the defensive backs, they can't seem to cover unless they have pass interference? And Kelly Ringo, I thought, made one of the weirdest decisions I ever made. When Johnson's waltzing into the end zone, he goes back to cover the receiver. There's nobody in front of him. I mean, I was just stunned that he did that. So the football IQ portion of it, even if he's a backup, concerns me because those guys might end up playing due to injury.
Yeah, Dave Zingaro, our friend at NBC Sports Philadelphia, had a great line yesterday. He said, well, the good news is we know the Eagles' backup defensive backs tackle well. The bad news is they do it when the ball is in the air. Yeah, it does concern me a little bit from the standpoint that this team clearly isn't as deep as last season's was, right? When Nakobe Dean, for instance, went out last season, you get Burks coming in and, a beat is not missed. So if they do lose somebody in the secondary, it doesn't make you feel good. I mean, Kelly Ringo, we've all kind of been waiting for him. That second cornerback spot was his job to win this season, going back to training camp. And from the jump, he just kind of ceded that position to Adoree Jackson.
And Jackson's improved over the year.
And he has. He's gotten better. So is it a concern? Yeah. Insofar as if they do lose a Goddard, if they do lose somebody in the defensive secondary, then there's reason to be worried.
That's more reason why they rested yesterday.
Yep, exactly. Exactly, Eckel.
You can't lose Quinyon Mitchell. You can't let Quinyon Mitchell go down in a game against Washington.
Hey, Mark, you cover the Packers. Packers-Bears matchup. I think it's a really intriguing matchup for me. I'm a Chicago native, so obviously I'm rooting for the Bears, and it's the most hated rivalry. You can talk about Duke and North Carolina and anybody else, but the Bears-Packers, they're at a fever pitch in Chicago right now. What do you think of that game? What do you think is going to happen? Because the Packers are nicked a little bit.
More than a little bit. Their best player, best defensive player, but I think their best overall player, Micah Parsons, is out. one of their best weapons on offense, Tucker Kraft, their tight end, who's a Dallas Goedert Jr. because he went to South Dakota State as well. He's out for the year. Their best defensive lineman, Devontae Wyatt, is out. So yeah, they're nicked. But they beat the Bears in Green Bay earlier, just a few weeks ago, and then dominated them for 58 minutes. It was 16-9. They held the Bears to 3 field goals until the 2-minute warning, and then Romeo Doubs decided to play Bill Buckner and let a ball go through a ground ball on an onside kick. He obviously never played baseball because he didn't charge the ball and pick it up. He backed up and tried to let it come to him, and then, like I said, he looked like Bill Buckner in the World Series. And then the Bears came back and got them tied and beat him. So they've played them tough. It's going to be it's amazing that's the oldest rivalry in the NFL. They played each other. I think I forget how many times, more than any teams have ever played each other.
100 and some times, I believe.
But they've only met in the playoffs twice. This is the third time. And once was in like the 30s.
That is kind
of crazy. They just never. We know what it is with those two teams. They're not good at the same time, for whatever reason. Like when the Bears had their run with Buddy's defense and Ditka and Walter Payton, that was the Packers' bad years. Then when the Packers got good, when Mike Holmgren got there and Brett Favre and all that, that's when the Bears went bad. So there's only been a couple times when they've both been good, and it's good when they're both good because this is a fun game. I think the Packers are favored on the road. And I'm a guy that says bet the line, not the teams. That tells me something. So I think there's going to be an upset in the first round, but I won't be an upset. The Packers are favored, right? But a lower seed team's going to win. I could see that. That's why I asked what you guys would rather have, because I think the Packers beat the Bears and then they'll go to Seattle and I think the Rams will beat Carolina. I think we all think that, right?
Well, yeah. I'm looking at the sports book right now, and the Bears are now a 1-point favorite.
Oh, it switched over.
So that line must have jumped a little bit.
I guess a lot of money came in on the Bears.
Let's talk about the Rams and Carolina. I think the Rams roll in this game, Mike, but Carolina beat them a few weeks ago at Carolina. But the line is 10, which is surprisingly high. What do you think? The Rams just they've got a great draw here, don't they?
Yeah, I think so. They're the better team. I agree with what you guys said earlier. They're kind of coming into the playoffs. If you had to pick a team on paper, that would be the clear favorite. To me, it would be the Rams, and yet here they are as the 5 seed because they kind of slumped. Lost 3 of their last 5 games there. Look, you got Matthew Stafford. He's been there. He's done that. He's absolutely terrific. The guy was underrated for all those years in Detroit and just had a craptastic supporting cast around him, and now gets, pardon me, with a really smart head coach, wins a Super Bowl. I would be stunned if the Rams lost that game. I really would. And so, I mean, that creates the choice that we talked about a minute ago. Do you want the Rams in the cold weather at home, or do you want the Bears in the cold weather in Chicago if you're the Eagles?
Right. Let's go to the AFC.
Eagles are a good road team. So I don't think going to Chicago is like some kind of, oh my God, they can't win it. Yeah,
I agree with you.
They've been great on the road, right?
Yeah, and it plays into like I said earlier, the way they want to play. Like that's part of the reason I'm so skeptical about the Bears is for all the great individual plays he makes, I watch Caleb Williams and I'm like, this guy is like kind of diet Jordan Love. Like there are times where you go, what is he thinking on that? Or where is he throwing the ball? And he just doesn't have that sense as a quarterback that I know exactly where I'm supposed to be going with the ball at the time I'm supposed to be going with it, and I'm going to get it there. And Hurts kind of swings the other way sometimes where he's so afraid to take chances that he just as soon tuck it away or throw it away. And that's been coached into him, and that I think is kind of the way he plays now. So in conditions like that against the Bears, that to me would give the Eagles an edge.
Somebody in Chicago referred to Williams as the Black Brett Favre, which I thought was interesting because he takes so many chances with the ball. But let's move on to the AFC, and we've got and what I think is a really interesting game. The Chargers are at the Patriots. Mark, what do you think about that one?
I like New England in that for a lot of reasons, and I like the Chargers before the season a lot. But they talk about a team that got banged up. They lost 2 outstanding tackles for the year in Slayton and all. They've been banged up a little bit here and there. New England's good. I mean, they're no fluke. They're good. Vrabel, I love Mike Vrabel. I can't believe. You know what Tennessee's record is since they fired him? 6-28. Maybe they shouldn't have fired him, huh? But anyway, and the
same
team
GM?
What's that?
Is it the same GM in Tennessee? Or
They got it. See, it all started when they traded A.J. Brown, believe it or not.
It did.
Vrabel did not want to trade A.J. Brown.
Nope.
He said,
Nope.
"Hey, give him what he wants. Give him the money. We need him." They traded him, and it all kind of fell apart from there. But I like New England. I think the Chargers coming across the country is probably not going to be nice weather in Foxborough, and the whole thing. I like New England a lot. Not to win.
Hey, Mike, let's talk about Buffalo at Jacksonville. I think it's the toughest possible draw for Buffalo in the AFC. I love Josh Allen. If you had me pick one quarterback that I would want to have play for me, it would be him. But they're not a great road team, and Jacksonville is loaded this year. They've really come on. What do you think about that, Mike?
Yeah, I agree with you, Ken. Really difficult draw for the Bills. I was skeptical about Trevor Lawrence for those first few years. As bad as the Urban Meyer experience was, he was so disappointing when Doug Peterson was there. And look, I know, Doug won a Super Bowl, but Doug is there's certain things about Doug that led me to think like, okay, maybe this is not the right place for him, or there's the chances that he's going to replicate what he did in Philadelphia are much lower in Jacksonville than they would have been even with Lawrence there. But you get Liam Cohen there and an offense that looks good, and all of a sudden Lawrence looks like the guy he was supposed to be. His numbers over the last 6 weeks or so are just insane. What he's been doing, and to play that game at home, I would take the Jaguars in that game.
And Mark, the last one, Houston at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh won a thrilling game last night when Baltimore's field goal it was missed at the very end. I love Houston in this game. I don't think Rodgers is mobile enough to get away from that ferocious Houston pass rush. Personally.
Yeah, I like Houston. Believe it or not, I picked Houston to win the AFC before the season. That was I love D'Amico Ryans. I love that defense. C.J. Stroud, he's another one that's up and down, but if he doesn't make the mistake, and he hasn't made many lately, I think Houston can still get to the Super Bowl.
I was just going to say this, guys. It's an interesting year in that you can't just look at the quarterbacks and say, oh, okay, well, this guy will get his team to the championship game or get them to the Super Bowl, right? Like your point about New England. New England's a really good all-around team, as terrific as Drake May has been. I love Justin Herbert, but my God, he took a beating against the Eagles a few weeks ago, and he'll take a beating against that New England defense too. So it's a really interesting year in that regard. I think defense and kind of the areas of the sport that we don't end up talking about very much are going to be the differences in seeing who makes it to the Super Bowl and who doesn't.
Hey, Mike, we've only got a couple minutes left. Tell us what projects you're working on now. I know you're an accomplished author. You've got some great books on the market. You're working on a Rocky book now, right?
You got more books than Dr. Seuss.
I do not like green eggs and ham. I literally just finished and submitted the manuscript for the book you mentioned, Ken. It's called Going the Distance, Stallone, Philly, and the Story of Rocky. It's coming out in November to coincide with the 50th anniversary of the original movie's release.
Wow.
And
50 years?
yeah, 50 years. I'm really happy with it so far. I can tell you that my editor at St. Martin's Press texted me Friday, and he's never done this before. And he just sent me a text. He said, I just finished reading the preface and I got chills, literal bleeping chills. So that was a good thing to hear.
Wow.
And I'm hopeful that people, enjoy the book. Like it gets into the film's connections to Philly, kind of puts it in the context of what was going on in the city at the time they made the movie. It's got some good stories about Stallone and how he came to be the driving force behind the movie getting made, and all kinds of stuff like that. So really looking forward to that coming out in November.
When does that due out, Mike?
November 10th.
Okay,
November 10th.
Perfect Christmas presents.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, send me some info.
And you have a book out now, though.
I do. I have a book out called Magic in the Air, The Myth, the Mystery, and the Soul of the Slam Dunk. It's actually coming out in paperback in a couple of weeks. It's basically a history of basketball through the slam dunk. But it's not like 350 pages of YouTube highlights. It's, there's racial history in there. There's sociology. There's Dr. J. There's MJ. There's the fact that the NCAA and High school basketball banned the dunk in the 60s and 70s because of the
yeah.
rise of black players.
The dunk was not allowed in Illinois in 1975, and I was a senior in high school. We could do it in college.
I couldn't dunk either.
Well, you still
It was banned for me by genetics, right?
Me too. Right. At 5'7", I wasn't dunking a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I just want to remind everybody, if you like the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark, like and subscribe, and we appreciate you being on. Mike, you're a great guest today. Thanks so much for your insights, and we'll look forward to your upcoming book. And I want to wish everybody a very prosperous and healthy 2026, and hopefully the Eagles will go on a run here. We can do this for a few more weeks. So for my co-host, Mark Eckel, and our guest, Mike Sielski, this is Ken Dunek. Thanks for watching the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark, everybody. And we'll talk to you next week. Take care.